Millionaire CEO panics when his $28 million car breaks down on a deserted road until a poor little girl fixes it in 2 minutes and leaves him frozen. Before we tell this heartfelt story of isolation and sadness, comment your city and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. The $28 million Koenigsegg Jesko Absolute came to a violent, shuddering halt on the desolate stretch of Highway 52, its engine dying with a pathetic wheeze that made billionaire CEO Marcus Wellington's blood run cold. Steam poured from beneath the gleaming carbon fiber hood like a dragon's dying breath, and the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree from hell. No, no, no! Marcus slammed his fists against the steering wheel, his perfectly manicured hands trembling with rage and disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not when he was racing to the most important board meeting of his life, the one that would determine whether Wellington Industries survived the hostile takeover attempt that threatened to destroy everything his father had built. His phone showed no signal. Of course, the irony wasn't lost on him. The man who'd made his fortune in telecommunications technology was now completely cut off from the world. The desert highway stretched endlessly in both directions, not another soul in sight. The scorching Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the asphalt, creating heat waves that danced like ghostly mirages. Marcus stepped out of the car, his Italian leather shoes crunching on the gravel shoulder. His $1,000 suit felt like a furnace in the oppressive heat. He popped the hood, and a cloud of steam engulfed his face, making him stagger backward, coughing and cursing. What he saw beneath the hood made his heart sink further. Coolant leaked everywhere, creating a growing puddle of green liquid that reflected his desperate face. The engine components looked like a mechanical nightmare, twisted, overheated, and completely beyond his understanding. He might as well have been staring at ancient hieroglyphics. "Damn it!" he shouted to the empty desert, his voice echoing off distant rock formations. Time was slipping away like sand through his fingers. Every minute that passed brought him closer to losing everything. The board meeting was in 3 hours, and he was stranded in the middle of nowhere with a car that cost more than most people's houses, but was now nothing more than an expensive paperweight. Sweat dripped down his face as panic began to set in. His empire was crumbling, the vultures were circling, and now this. Marcus Wellington, who controlled companies worth billions, who commanded respect in boardrooms across the globe, stood helpless beside his broken dream machine. Then through the heat shimmer on the horizon, he saw something that made him question his sanity. A small figure was walking toward him along the highway's edge, moving with purpose despite the brutal heat. As the figure drew closer, Marcus realized with shock that it was a child, a little girl who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She wore faded overalls that were too big for her tiny frame, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her face was smudged with what looked like motor oil, and she carried a small toolbox that seemed almost as big as she was. "Mister, your car's hurt," she called out in a sweet voice that seemed impossible in this harsh environment. Marcus stared at her in bewilderment. Where had she come from? There was nothing but desert for miles. "Little girl, where are your parents? You shouldn't be out here alone." She set down her toolbox with a decisive thunk and looked up at him with eyes that seemed far too knowing for someone her age. "Mama's working at the garage down that way." She pointed vaguely toward the shimmering horizon. "I heard your engine crying from way back there. She's sick, isn't she?" The girl nodded toward the car with genuine sympathy. "Sick?" Marcus repeated, still processing this surreal encounter. It's broken. The engine overheated. I need to get to Phoenix immediately." "I can fix her," the girl said matter-of-factly. Already moving toward the open hood, Marcus almost laughed, but something in her confident manner stopped him. "Sweetheart, this is a very expensive, very complicated car. Even professional mechanics have trouble with $28 million, she interrupted, running her small hand along the car's sleek lines. "Koenigsegg Jesko Absolute, twin-turbo V8, 1 to 600 horsepower. But she's just a car, mister. And all cars need the same things to be happy. Marcus's jaw dropped. How could this child possibly know what his car was worth? He'd never met an adult who could identify it, let alone a 7-year-old, in the middle of the desert. The girl was already peering into the engine compartment, and Marcus watched in amazement as her expression grew serious and focused. Just like I thought. Your radiator hose came loose and she got too hot. See this clamp here? She pointed to something Marcus couldn't even identify. It's not tight enough. The vibration from highway driving loosened it up. Marcus watched in stunned silence as the little girl opened her weathered toolbox with the practiced efficiency of a master craftsman. Her small hands moved with surprising confidence among tools that seemed too large for her to handle, yet she wielded them as if they were extensions of her own fingers. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, still struggling to process what was happening. "Lucy," she replied without looking up from the engine. "Lucy Thompson. Mama says I got grease in my veins instead of blood." She giggled at this, a sound as pure and unexpected as finding water in the desert. "Lucy, I need you to understand something," Marcus said carefully, crouching down to her level. "This car is worth more money than most people see in their entire lives. If something goes wrong—" "Nothing's gonna go wrong, mister," Lucy interrupted, already working on the loose clamp with a small wrench. "See, cars are honest. They don't lie or pretend to be something they're not. When they hurt, they tell you exactly what's wrong. People are way more complicated than cars." Her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had spoken to him with such simple honesty? In his world of corporate politics and calculated conversations, every word was measured, every gesture strategic. Yet here was this child, speaking truth as naturally as breathing. "How do you know so much about cars?" he asked, genuinely curious now. Lucy's face lit up with pride. "Mama taught me. She's the best mechanic in 3 counties, but people don't always want a lady fixing their cars, so sometimes I help when they're not looking." She tightened the clamp with a decisive twist. "There. Now we need to add some coolant and let her cool down a bit more." "You just carry coolant around with you?" Marcus asked incredulously. Lucy pointed to her toolbox, where Marcus now noticed several small bottles of various automotive fluids. "Mama says a good mechanic is always prepared. The desert's full of broken-down cars and people who need help." As Lucy worked, Marcus found himself studying her more closely. Despite her young age, there was something almost otherworldly about her competence. Her movements were sure and steady, and she seemed to understand the engine's needs intuitively, but it was more than mechanical skill. There was a wisdom in her eyes that seemed impossible for someone so young. "Lucy, can I ask you something?" Marcus said, as she carefully poured coolant into the reservoir. "What are you doing all the way out here by yourself? This is a dangerous place for a little girl." Lucy's expression grew serious. "I was walking to town to get medicine for Mama. She's been real sick lately, coughing up blood and stuff. We don't have money for the doctor. But old Mr. Peterson at the pharmacy sometimes gives us medicine if I help clean his store." Marcus felt something twist in his chest, an emotion he'd almost forgotten existed. "How far is town?" "About 12 miles that way." Lucy pointed down the highway. "I walk it sometimes when Mama can't drive. She says I got strong legs and a stronger heart." The casual way she mentioned walking 12 miles in the desert heat made Marcus realize how sheltered his own life had become. Here was a child facing hardships he couldn't even imagine. Yet she'd stopped to help a stranger without hesitation. "The coolant needs a few more minutes to circulate," Lucy said, wiping her hands on a rag. "Then we can start her up and she should purr like a kitten." Marcus pulled out his wallet, thick with $100 bills. "Lucy, let me pay you for your help, and maybe I can drive you to town." "I don't want your money, mister," Lucy said firmly. "Mama says we help people because it's right, not because we get paid for it." The simple dignity in her refusal shamed Marcus more than any business defeat ever had. When was the last time he'd done something without calculating the return on investment? When had he last helped someone simply because it was right? But I could help your mother, Marcus pressed. I could pay for her medicine, her doctor bills. Lucy studied his face with those impossibly wise eyes. You're not from around here, are you, mister? You talk different, fancy. I'm from Phoenix. I run a company there. What kind of company? We make things that help people communicate. Phones, computers, that sort of thing. Lucy nodded thoughtfully. Communication's important. Mama says half the world's problems come from people not talking to each other right. Again, her simple wisdom struck him like a lightning bolt. How many business deals had fallen apart because of miscommunication? How many relationships had he lost because he'd forgotten how to simply talk to people? Okay, I think she's ready now, Lucy announced, closing the hood with surprising strength. Try starting her up. Marcus climbed back into the driver's seat, his heart pounding. If this didn't work, if a 7-year-old had somehow made things worse. But as he turned the key, the engine roared to life with perfect, powerful smoothness. The temperature gauge showed normal readings, and all the warning lights had disappeared. He sat in stunned silence for a moment before getting out of the car. Lucy was already packing up her tools, her job complete. "How?" was all Marcus could manage to say. Lucy shrugged as if she'd just tied her shoes. "Like I said, cars are honest. You just have to listen to what they're telling you." Marcus stood beside his purring Koenigsegg, watching Lucy secure the latches on her tiny toolbox with the methodical care of a seasoned professional. The transformation was miraculous. What had seemed like a catastrophic mechanical failure requiring thousands of dollars and days of repair had been fixed in minutes by a 7-year-old girl with a rusty toolbox. "Lucy, this is incredible," Marcus said, running his hand through his hair in disbelief. "I've owned this car for 2 years, and my team of certified technicians has never gotten it running this smoothly." "That's 'cause they probably overthink it," Lucy replied, matter-of-factly. "Grown-ups like to make things complicated. Cars like simple solutions to simple problems." The desert sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Marcus realized he'd been so focused on his panic about the board meeting that he'd barely noticed the stunning beauty of this desolate place. Now, with his immediate crisis resolved, he found himself reluctant to leave. "Lucy, let me ask you something else," Marcus said, leaning against his car. "How did you know exactly what was wrong just by listening to the engine?" Lucy tilted her head thoughtfully. "Same way you know when someone's sad just by looking at their face. Engines got their own language. This one was saying, 'I'm too hot and I can't breathe right.' So I helped her breathe better." Her explanation was so simple, yet it revealed a depth of understanding that most people never achieved in their entire careers. Marcus found himself wondering what other wisdom this extraordinary child possessed. "Tell me about your mama," he said. "You mentioned she's sick." Lucy's bright expression dimmed slightly. "Mama works real hard. She's the only lady mechanic for miles around. And she has to work twice as hard as the men to prove she knows what she's doing. Sometimes she works all night just to pay our rent." Lucy kicked at a small stone on the ground. "Lately, she's been coughing a lot. Says it's just dust from the garage. But I seen the blood in her handkerchief." Marcus felt his chest tighten. This child was carrying burdens that would crush most adults. "What about your father?" "Don't have one," Lucy said simply. "Mama says he left when I was a baby. Said he didn't want the responsibility." She looked up at Marcus with those penetrating eyes. "You got kids, mister?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "No, I never had time for children. My business, it requires complete dedication." "That's sad," Lucy said with the brutal honesty that only children possess. "Mama says having me is the best thing that ever happened to her, even when times get hard." Marcus found himself thinking about his own childhood, about the father who'd built Wellington Industries from nothing but had been too busy building his empire to notice his son growing up alone in their mansion. Was he destined to repeat that pattern? But there would be no son to ignore. He'd never even allowed himself to consider the possibility of a family. "Lucy, I want to help your mother," Marcus said suddenly. "Really help." Not just money, but real help. Lucy studied him carefully. Why? You don't even know us. It was a fair question, and Marcus struggled to find an answer that made sense even to himself. Because you helped me when you didn't have to. Because you fixed something I couldn't fix, and you asked for nothing in return. Because there's something about you that makes me want to be a better person. Lucy was quiet for a long moment, her young face serious with thought. Mama says people who want to help usually want something back. What do you want, mister? The question stopped Marcus cold. What did he want? For the first time in years, he found himself thinking beyond the next quarterly report, beyond market dominance and profit margins. What he wanted, he realized, was to feel useful in a way that mattered, to contribute something real to the world, instead of just accumulating wealth. I want to learn, he said finally. I want to understand how someone your age can be wiser than people 3 times as old. I want to know what it means to help someone without expecting anything in return. Lucy nodded slowly, as if his answer had passed some internal test. Mama always says the best teachers are the ones who know they still got learning to do. A distant rumble caught their attention. Coming down the highway was an ancient pickup truck, its engine rattling and coughing as it approached. The truck pulled over behind the Koenigsegg, and a woman climbed out of the driver's seat. She was clearly Lucy's mother, the same dark hair, the same intelligent eyes. But where Lucy radiated energy and health, her mother looked exhausted and pale. She wore grease-stained coveralls and moved with the careful precision of someone trying to hide pain. "Lucy May Thompson," the woman called out, though her voice held more relief than anger. "I've been looking everywhere for you. Mrs. Garcia saw you walking toward town and—" She stopped mid-sentence as she took in the scene. Her daughter, the expensive sports car, and the well-dressed stranger. "It's okay, Mama," Lucy called out, running to her mother's side. "This nice man's car got sick, so I helped her feel better." The woman, Sarah, Marcus assumed, looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and embarrassment. "I'm sorry if my daughter bothered you, sir. She means well, but she sometimes doesn't understand when to leave folks alone." "Ma'am, please." Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Wellington. Your daughter didn't bother me. She saved me. She fixed my car when I was completely stranded." Sarah looked skeptically at the gleaming Koenigsegg. "Lucy fixed that?" "Loose radiator hose clamp," Lucy piped up proudly. "Easy fix once you know what to look for." Sarah's expression softened with maternal pride, but Marcus could see the wariness still in her eyes. He recognized the look. It was the same expression he'd seen on his own employees' faces when they thought he might be setting them up for disappointment. "Mrs. Thompson," Marcus said carefully, "I'd like to talk to you about your daughter. She's remarkable." "She's 7 years old," Sarah replied firmly, "and she needs to be getting home for dinner." The protective tone in her voice told Marcus everything he needed to know about the kind of mother Sarah was. Despite her obvious illness and financial struggles, her priority was her daughter's welfare. It reminded him of his own mother, who died when he was Lucy's age, leaving him alone with a father too consumed by business to notice his son's grief. "Of course," Marcus said, "but perhaps we could continue this conversation another time. I meant what I said about wanting to help." Sarah studied his face for a long moment. "Help how?" The setting sun cast long shadows across the desert highway as Sarah Thompson studied Marcus Wellington with the careful assessment of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. Her weathered hands rested protectively on Lucy's shoulders, and Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out in her tired eyes. Hope warring with suspicion. "Mr. Wellington," Sarah said finally, her voice cautious but not unfriendly, "I appreciate your gratitude for Lucy's help, but we don't take charity." "This isn't charity," Marcus replied quickly. "This is about recognizing extraordinary talent. Your daughter has a gift that most trained mechanics would envy." Lucy beamed at the praise, but Sarah's expression remained guarded. "She's learned a few things around the garage, that's all. Kids pick things up quick." "Sarah, may I call you Sarah?" What Lucy did today wasn't just picking things up. She diagnosed a complex problem in seconds and fixed it with precision that would impress engineers at Ferrari. Marcus gestured toward his car. This vehicle has electronic systems that cost more than most people's annual salary. Yet she understood its needs better than anyone I've ever met. Sarah began coughing, a harsh sound that seemed to come from deep in her chest. She tried to muffle it with her hand, but Marcus saw the flecks of blood on her palm when she pulled it away. Lucy immediately moved closer to her mother, her small face creased with worry. "Mama, you should sit down," Lucy said quietly. "I'm fine, baby," Sarah managed, though her pale complexion suggested otherwise. She looked at Marcus with new urgency. "Mr. Wellington, I don't know what kind of help you're talking about, but Lucy and we make our own way. We don't need anyone feeling sorry for us." "I don't feel sorry for you," Marcus said honestly. "I envy you." Both Sarah and Lucy looked at him in surprise. "You've raised an incredible daughter," Marcus continued. "Someone who sees solutions where others see problems. Someone who helps strangers without expecting anything in return. Someone who has more wisdom at 7 than most people accumulate in a lifetime. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Sarah's defensive posture softened slightly. "Lucy is special," she admitted. "Always has been. Even as a baby, she could figure out how things worked just by watching. By age 3, she was helping me sort bolts and washers. By 5, she was spotting problems I missed. Has she ever been formally tested for gifted programs, advanced placement?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Mr. Wellington, we live paycheck to paycheck. Lucy goes to whatever school will take her, and I'm grateful for that much. Formal testing and gifted programs are for families with resources we don't have." Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, a familiar sensation he recognized from his most important business negotiations. But this time, it wasn't about profit margins or market share. This was about something infinitely more valuable. "What if I told you that could change?" he said carefully. "I'd ask what you want in return," Sarah replied immediately. The honesty of her response reminded Marcus of Lucy's straightforward manner. Clearly, the apple hadn't fallen far from the tree. "I want to learn from your daughter," Marcus said, "and I want to give her opportunities to learn things that will challenge that incredible mind of hers." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the fading light. "You're serious, completely serious." "Sarah, I run a technology company worth billions of dollars. I employ thousands of engineers, programmers, and designers. But your 7-year-old daughter solved a problem today that would have stumped most of them. That's not luck or coincidence. That's genuine, extraordinary ability." "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah asked. Marcus took a deep breath. He was about to make an offer that would change all their lives, and he wasn't entirely sure where the impulse was coming from. All he knew was that walking away from Lucy and Sarah felt impossible. "I'm proposing a partnership," he said. "I pay for Lucy's education, the best schools, tutors, resources, whatever she needs to develop her abilities. In exchange, she spends time at my company, learning about technology, engineering, problem-solving. Not as an employee," he added quickly, seeing Sarah's expression, "but as a student, a consultant maybe, someone who can look at our problems with fresh eyes." "She's 7 years old," Sarah repeated. "Age is just a number when it comes to natural ability," Marcus countered. "Some of history's greatest innovators started young. Mozart was composing symphonies at age 5. Bobby Fischer was a chess master at 13. Your daughter fixed a $28 million car in 2 minutes. Age doesn't diminish that achievement." Lucy had been listening quietly to the adult conversation, her head turning back and forth like she was watching a tennis match. Now she tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mama," she said softly, "I like learning new things." Sarah looked down at her daughter, and Marcus could see the war between maternal protection and the desire to give Lucy every possible advantage. He understood the dilemma. He'd watched his own father struggle with similar decisions, though admittedly the circumstances had been very different. "Mr. Wellington," Sarah said finally, Assuming I was even considering this, which I'm not sure I am. What about my work? I can't just leave Lucy with strangers while I'm trying to keep food on the table. Marcus had been hoping she'd ask that question. That's the other part of my proposal. You come too. I'll hire you as head of our vehicle maintenance department. We have a fleet of company cars, trucks, equipment vehicles. They need someone who really understands engines, not just someone following a manual. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. You want to hire me based on watching my daughter work on your car? I want to hire you based on recognizing that someone who taught Lucy everything she knows must be extraordinary herself. Plus, Marcus added with a slight smile, Lucy told me you're the best mechanic in 3 counties. I'm inclined to trust her judgment. The desert evening was growing cooler, and Marcus could see goosebumps rising on Lucy's arms through her thin overalls. Time was running short. He needed to get to Phoenix, and they needed to get somewhere warm. I don't expect an answer tonight, Marcus said, but I'd like to give you my card and ask you to think about it. Really think about it. This could change everything for both of you. He pulled out his business card and wrote his personal cell phone number on the back. As he handed it to Sarah, their fingers briefly touched, and he was struck by how rough her hands were, the hands of someone who'd worked hard for everything she had. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. Your medical situation. Whatever it is, whatever it costs, it's covered. No strings attached, regardless of your decision about everything else. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. Why? Why would you do all this for strangers? Marcus looked at Lucy, who was watching him with those impossibly wise eyes, and found his answer. Because your daughter reminded me what it means to be human. 3 days later, Marcus sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Wellington Tower, staring out at the Phoenix skyline while his phone buzzed with increasingly urgent messages. The board meeting he'd raced to attend had gone better than expected. The hostile takeover had been successfully deflected, and Wellington Industries was secure for another quarter. But for the first time in his corporate career, business victory felt hollow. He couldn't stop thinking about Lucy Thompson. Every decision he made, every problem he encountered, he found himself wondering, what would Lucy do? How would she see this situation? Her simple, direct approach to problem-solving had haunted him for 3 days. While his team of engineers spent weeks analyzing complex issues, a 7-year-old girl had diagnosed and fixed a mechanical problem in minutes, using nothing but observation and intuition. His assistant, Patricia, knocked on his door. Mr. Wellington, the quarterly reports are ready for your review, and the development team is waiting for your decision on the new product line. In a minute, Patricia, Marcus said, not turning from the window. Have you ever met someone who completely changed your perspective on everything? Patricia paused in the doorway. In her 15 years as his assistant, Marcus had never asked her a personal question. Yes, sir, my daughter. The day she was born, I realized I'd been living for all the wrong reasons. Marcus turned to look at her, really look at her, for perhaps the first time. Patricia was in her 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She'd been the backbone of his office operations, handling everything from scheduling to crisis management, yet he realized he knew almost nothing about her personal life. How old is your daughter now? He asked. 32, Patricia replied, surprise evident in her voice. She's a teacher in Portland, has 2 kids of her own. You must be proud. Every day, Patricia said softly. Mr. Wellington, are you feeling all right? You seem different since your trip. Before Marcus could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but something made him pick it up immediately. Mr. Wellington? The voice was quiet, tentative. This is Sarah Thompson. From the highway the other day. Marcus's heart rate accelerated. Sarah, I was hoping you'd call. How are you? How's Lucy? We're okay. I wanted to talk to you about your offer. Could we meet somewhere? I have some questions. Of course. Anywhere you'd like. Well, that's part of the problem. My truck broke down yesterday, the transmission finally gave up, and we don't have a way to get to Phoenix. I was wondering, would you be willing to come back out here? I know it's asking a lot. I'll be there in 2 hours, Marcus said without hesitation. Are you at home? Do you need me to bring anything? Sarah gave him directions to a small garage on the outskirts of Desert Springs, a town Marcus had never heard of despite living in Arizona for over a decade. After hanging up, he found himself energized in a way he hadn't felt since childhood Christmas mornings. Patricia, cancel my afternoon appointments, he said, grabbing his keys, and call Dr. Harrison's office. I want to set up a comprehensive medical consultation for someone. Money is no object, but discretion is essential. Sir? I'll explain later. Just make it happen. The drive to Desert Springs took Marcus through parts of Arizona he'd never seen, despite having lived in the state for years. The landscape was harsh, but beautiful, full of saguaro cacti and red rock formations that seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. As he drove, he found himself thinking about how insulated his life had become, moving from his penthouse apartment to his office tower to exclusive restaurants and clubs, never venturing into the real world where people like Sarah and Lucy lived their daily lives. Desert Springs turned out to be barely more than a wide spot in the road, a few dozen buildings clustered around a single main street, with the kind of small-town atmosphere that existed only in movies as far as Marcus had known. Sarah's garage was at the end of town, a modest concrete building with Thompson's Auto Repair painted in fading letters across the front. Marcus parked his Koenigsegg next to a collection of pickup trucks and older sedans, drawing curious stares from several locals. He felt overdressed in his business suit, but there was no help for that now. The garage was clean and well organized, with tools arranged neatly on pegboards and parts stored in labeled bins. It was clearly a professional operation, despite its humble appearance. Sarah emerged from beneath the hood of an old Ford pickup, wiping her hands on a rag. "Mr. Wellington," she said with a cautious smile, "thank you for coming all this way." "Thank you for calling," Marcus replied. "Where's Lucy?" "In the back, working on a puzzle. She's been talking about you non-stop since the other day. I think you made quite an impression." As if summoned by their conversation, Lucy appeared from the rear of the garage, her face lighting up when she saw Marcus. "Mister, you came back." "I promised I would," Marcus said, kneeling down to her level. "How are you, Lucy?" "Good. I fixed Mrs. Patterson's lawnmower yesterday, and I helped Mama rebuild an alternator. Want to see?" Before Marcus could answer, Lucy had grabbed his hand and was pulling him toward a workbench, where an alternator lay in carefully organized pieces. She began explaining the rebuild process with the enthusiasm and expertise of a master craftsman, using technical terms that most adults wouldn't understand. "Lucy," Sarah called gently, "Mr. Wellington and I need to talk grown-up business for a few minutes. Why don't you show him your puzzle afterward?" Lucy nodded and skipped back to the rear of the garage, leaving the adults alone. Sarah gestured for Marcus to sit on a nearby stool while she leaned against the workbench. "I've been thinking about your offer," Sarah said. "And I have to admit, part of me wants to say yes immediately. The opportunities you're talking about for Lucy, they're beyond anything I could ever provide for her." "But," Marcus prompted. "But I'm scared," Sarah admitted. "Lucy is all I have in this world. She's smart, yes, but she's also just a little girl. I'm afraid that putting her in some high-pressure academic environment might rob her of her childhood." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "What if we could structure something that protects her childhood while still challenging her mind? Part-time tutoring, maybe, combined with hands-on learning experiences? She wouldn't have to give up being a kid to develop her abilities." "And what about the medical situation you mentioned?" Sarah asked quietly. "I saw a doctor yesterday. The news isn't good." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "What did they say?" "Lung disease, probably from years of working around automotive chemicals without proper ventilation. It's progressive. Without treatment, I maybe have a year. With treatment," Sarah shrugged, "maybe longer." but the treatment costs more than I'll make in the next 5 years." The matter-of-fact way she delivered this devastating news reminded Marcus of Lucy's straightforward manner. Both mother and daughter faced life's challenges with a courage he wasn't sure he possessed. "That's not going to happen," Marcus said firmly. "I meant what I said about covering your medical expenses. You're going to get the best treatment available, and you're going to watch your daughter grow up." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for us?" Marcus thought about Patricia's words, about perspective-changing moments and living for the right reasons. "Because 3 days ago, I thought success meant having the biggest office and the most expensive car. Your daughter taught me that real success means knowing how to help people when they need it most." From the back of the garage came Lucy's voice. "Mama, I finished the puzzle. It's a picture of a family." Sarah wiped her eyes and managed a smile. "She always finishes the puzzles, every single one." "Maybe," Marcus said carefully, "she can help us solve this puzzle too." The next morning, Marcus arrived at his office earlier than usual, but instead of diving into quarterly reports and strategic planning, he found himself sketching organizational charts and educational frameworks on his whiteboard. For the first time in years, he was excited about a project that had nothing to do with profit margins. Patricia knocked and entered with his morning coffee, pausing when she saw the whiteboard covered with his scrawled notes about mentorship programs and child development theories. "Sir, if you don't mind me asking, what exactly are you planning?" Marcus turned from the whiteboard, his eyes bright with the kind of energy Patricia hadn't seen since the company's early startup days. "I'm going to create a new division, a think tank, basically, but focused on unconventional problem-solving approaches. And I'm going to staff it with people who see solutions where others see impossibilities." "That sounds ambitious," Patricia said carefully. "It sounds crazy," Marcus admitted with a laugh, "but I met someone who reminded me that the best innovations often come from the most unexpected sources." His phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. "Lucy wants to know if you'd like to see her workshop. She's built something she thinks you'd find interesting." Marcus grabbed his keys immediately. "Patricia, clear my schedule for the rest of the day and call Harvard's education department. I want to speak with their child development specialists about creating a custom learning program." "Harvard." "Mr. Wellington, what exactly is going on?" But Marcus was already heading for the elevator, leaving Patricia staring at the whiteboard full of plans that made no conventional business sense, but somehow felt more important than any project Wellington Industries had ever undertaken. The drive to Desert Springs had become familiar now, and Marcus found himself looking forward to seeing the landscape that had seemed so desolate just days ago. Funny how perspective could transform everything. The harsh desert now looked resilient and beautiful, rather than barren and threatening. When he arrived at Thompson's Auto Repair, he found Sarah under the hood of a vintage Mustang, but Lucy was nowhere to be seen. Sarah looked up as he approached, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "She's in her workshop," Sarah said with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. "Marcus, I have to warn you, what she's built, I don't even understand how it's possible." "Her workshop?" Sarah led him behind the garage to a small shed that Marcus hadn't noticed before. It had been converted into what could only be described as a 7-year-old's version of a high-tech laboratory. Workbenches lined the walls, covered with a bizarre collection of automotive parts, electronic components, and what appeared to be computer equipment that had been carefully disassembled and reassembled. Lucy sat in the center of it all, surrounded by a complex arrangement of sensors, wires, and small motors, her tongue poking out in concentration as she adjusted something with a tiny screwdriver. "Hi, Mr. Marcus," she called without looking up. "I'm almost finished. Just need to calibrate the pressure sensors." Marcus stared in amazement. "Lucy, what is all this?" "It's a diagnostic system," she replied matter-of-factly. "See, most car problems happen before the engine warning lights come on, but by then it's usually expensive to fix. So I thought, what if we could hear what the car is trying to tell us before it gets really sick?" She gestured to an array of small devices connected by colorful wires. These sensors can detect vibration patterns, temperature changes, and pressure variations that happen way before humans can notice them. Then this computer, I built it from old parts people threw away, analyzes the patterns and tells us what might be wrong. Marcus felt his worldview shifting again. You built a predictive diagnostic system? Is that what it's called? Lucy asked, finally looking up with those impossibly wise eyes. I just call it the car whisperer. Lucy, do you understand what this means? Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Major automotive companies spend millions of dollars trying to develop this exact technology. Lucy shrugged. It's not that hard once you understand that everything is connected. Cars, computers, people, we all give off signals when something's wrong. You just have to know how to listen. Sarah appeared in the doorway, having followed them from the garage. She's been working on this for months, she said quietly, using parts from broken-down cars and old electronics that people donate or throw away. I helped her with some of the mechanical aspects, but the computer programming, she figured that out herself. How? Marcus asked, struggling to process what he was seeing. YouTube, Lucy replied cheerfully, and library books. Mrs. Henderson at the library orders special books for me when I ask. She says I'm her most interesting patron. Marcus laughed despite his shock. Of course, she'd taught herself advanced programming from YouTube videos. Why should that surprise him at this point? Lucy, would you like to show this to some engineers? People who specialize in this kind of technology? Lucy's face lit up. Really? They wouldn't think it's silly? Silly? Marcus shook his head. Lucy, what you've created here could revolutionize automotive maintenance. Car owners could fix problems before they become expensive disasters. Mechanics could diagnose issues more accurately. You might have just solved one of the industry's biggest challenges. Cool, Lucy said with the casual acceptance that only children possess when told they've accomplished the impossible. Want to see it work? Mrs. Patterson's car has been making a funny noise, but she can't afford to bring it to the shop unless something actually breaks. 20 minutes later, Marcus watched in stunned silence as Lucy's car whisperer correctly identified a failing water pump bearing in Mrs. Patterson's 15-year-old sedan, a problem that would have cost hundreds of dollars to diagnose and repair if left until the pump completely failed. The system says we probably have 2 weeks before it gets critical, Lucy explained, reading the data from a small screen she'd rigged up to display the results. That gives Mrs. Patterson time to save up for the repair. Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman with kind eyes and worried expression, looked at the diagnostic report with amazement. Lucy, honey, you're saying my car told this machine that it's going to break soon? Not break, Lucy corrected gently. Just get sick, but if we help it now, it won't be as expensive to make it better. As Mrs. Patterson drove away with her early warning and a plan to prevent catastrophic damage, Marcus found himself staring at Lucy with something approaching awe. Sarah, he said quietly, we need to talk. That evening, as Lucy demonstrated her system to a hastily assembled video conference with some of Wellington Industries' top engineers, Marcus watched their faces transform from skepticism to amazement to something resembling reverence. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, his head of R&D, was furiously taking notes while asking increasingly technical questions that Lucy answered with casual expertise. Mr. Wellington, Dr. Walsh said during a brief break, if what we're seeing is accurate, this child has single-handedly developed technology that could disrupt the entire automotive service industry. The applications are limitless. I know, Marcus replied, watching Lucy explain sensor placement theory to an engineer with 20 years of experience. The question is, what do we do about it? When the conference ended, Lucy bounded over to Marcus with excitement. Did you see how surprised they were? They asked really good questions. They did, Marcus agreed. Lucy, how would you feel about working with Dr. Walsh and her team? They could help you develop your ideas even further. Lucy considered this seriously. Would I still get to help people like Mrs. Patterson? Especially people like Mrs. Patterson, Marcus assured her. But maybe we could help a lot more people at the same time. Lucy nodded decisively. Then yes, but I want Mama to help too. She knows more about cars than anybody. Marcus looked at Sarah, who had been quietly watching the evening's events unfold with an expression of maternal pride mixed with overwhelmed disbelief. Sarah, he said, I'm not just offering you a job anymore. I'm offering you a partnership. Your daughter isn't just gifted, she's revolutionary. And I want Wellington Industries to help her change the world. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, studying her daughter, who was now sketching improvements to her diagnostic system with the focused intensity of a master inventor. One condition, Sarah said finally. Lucy stays a kid. No matter how brilliant she is, no matter what opportunities come up, she gets to be 7 years old. She gets to play, to make mistakes, to just be a child. Agreed, Marcus said immediately. In fact, I think that's exactly what will make her innovation so special. She sees problems with a child's clarity and solves them without the limitations that experience teaches us to accept. As they shook hands on the agreement that would transform all their lives, Lucy looked up from her sketching. Mr. Marcus, she said thoughtfully, I have an idea for making cars that fix themselves. Want to hear about it? Marcus grinned, realizing that his journey into the impossible had only just begun. I thought you'd never ask. 6 months later, Marcus stood in Wellington Industries' newest division, watching Lucy Thompson work alongside world-class engineers. What he saw still amazed him. Lucy sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by holographic displays worth millions. Her small hands moved across touchscreens, adjusting algorithms with natural ease. The predictive accuracy is now at 96%, Dr. Jennifer Walsh reported. Her understanding of mechanical systems is unprecedented. Marcus focused on Lucy's mother working nearby. Sarah's transformation had been remarkable. The pale, exhausted woman from the desert garage had become vibrant and confident. How's their adjustment been? Marcus asked. Incredible. Sarah's knowledge combined with our resources has accelerated development by years, and Lucy asks questions that reshape our understanding. Lucy suddenly jumped up, excitement lighting her face. She ran to a whiteboard and began sketching frantically. Another breakthrough, Dr. Walsh grinned. This happens 3 times a week. Marcus entered the lab and Lucy immediately bounced over, eyes shining. Mr. Marcus, I figured out why some cars get sad even when nothing's mechanically wrong. Sad? Marcus asked, delighting in her descriptions. Cars have feelings about how they're treated. If someone's mean to their car, never washing it, ignoring warnings, the car behaves differently. Not broken, just unhappy. Dr. Walsh joined them, fascinated. Lucy's discovered that vehicles respond to operator emotional states. It's revolutionary. Cars can sense human emotions, Marcus asked. More like humans treat things differently based on moods, and cars remember that treatment, Lucy explained. A car driven by someone who loves it runs better. Her simple explanation masked profound implications. Lucy wasn't just creating diagnostic tools, she was revealing fundamental truths about relationships. What if we applied this to other things? Computers, buildings, cities? Lucy's face lit up. Like making everything happier by treating it better. Sarah approached, wiping her hands. Marcus, thank you again for the new diagnostic bay. Proper ventilation makes such a difference. You've earned it. Your insights have saved millions in maintenance costs. Mama's the best, Lucy chimed in. She taught me that taking care of things is the same as loving them. The wisdom struck Marcus powerfully. When had he last truly cared for something simply because he loved it? Lucy, would you like to see where I live? He asked impulsively. Lucy's eyes widened. Really? Is it like a castle? Marcus laughed. Something like that. An hour later, Lucy and Sarah stood in Marcus's penthouse. Instead of being impressed by the luxury, Lucy seemed puzzled. "Mr. Marcus, where are all your things?" Marcus looked around his sterile, professionally decorated space. No personal photos, no mementos, no signs anyone lived there. "I don't have many personal belongings." "But how do you remember happy times without things that remind you?" Lucy asked with devastating child logic. Sarah examined the unused kitchen. "This is beautiful, but it doesn't feel like a home. I'm not here much. I spend most time at the office." "That's sad," Lucy said matter-of-factly. "Everyone needs a place that feels like them." Seeing it through Lucy's eyes, Marcus felt loneliness he'd ignored for years. "How would you make this feel more like a home?" Lucy pressed her hands against the massive windows. "First, you need things that make you happy. Pictures of people you care about. Plants so it feels alive. And a place to build and fix things." "What would make you happy, Marcus?" Sarah asked gently. The question should have been simple, but Marcus struggled. Looking at Lucy and Sarah, he realized the happiest he'd been was watching Lucy work. "I think I'd like pictures of my new friends." Lucy beamed. "We can be your first family photos." The word family hit like lightning. Looking at them, he realized they'd become precious to him. Lucy approached renovation with systematic problem-solving. Every room needs something made with love. Store-bought things are nice, but they don't have stories. She directed furniture rearrangement with authority, but pure wisdom. "The couch goes here so you can see both the city and kitchen. You can watch people living outside while making food inside." Lucy demonstrated scrambled eggs with MasterChef seriousness. "The secret is going slow and paying attention. If you rush, they get tough. If you ignore them, they burn." Marcus suspected she wasn't just talking about eggs. Every room needs three things: something beautiful, something useful, and something comfortable for being. Being, just existing. When you're tired or happy, you need places that let you be Marcus, not boss Marcus. By evening, his penthouse had transformed into an actual home, but the biggest change was in Marcus himself. "Tomorrow we start teaching you how to have fun," Lucy announced. Marcus realized Lucy wasn't just fixing his house, she was fixing him. The next morning brought crisis. Dr. Walsh called at 6 a.m., voice tight with concern. "Marcus, the prototype diagnostic system is malfunctioning. False readings across the board, and we have a presentation in 4 hours. Marcus felt panic, then remembered Lucy's approach. What does Lucy think is wrong? "She's not here." Sarah called. Lucy woke up with a fever. Marcus realized this was opportunity to apply what she'd taught him. "Let's approach this like Lucy would. Assume the machine is telling us something important." At the lab, engineers stared at nonsensical diagnostic data. The system reported perfectly healthy vehicles as catastrophically damaged. "We've run every test, Doctor," Walsh explained. "Hardware's fine, but results are completely wrong." Marcus studied the readouts, channeling Lucy's intuitive approach. "What changed between yesterday and today?" "Nothing. Same equipment, protocols, vehicles." "Lucy says to listen to what machines are telling us." "What if the readings aren't wrong?" Dr. Walsh spoke carefully. "The system reports the test vehicle's engine is about to explode. It's a brand new car." Marcus walked to the test vehicle and popped the hood, examining with methodical attention Lucy had taught him. "Has anyone actually looked at the engine today?" He spotted a small puddle of fluid. "This is coolant. There's a leak." Within minutes, they'd located a hairline crack in a radiator hose. Barely visible, but potentially catastrophic. "The system was right," Marcus said excitedly. "It detected the leak before it became visible. They discovered their malfunctioning system was performing beyond expectations, predicting failures that hadn't happened yet." But celebration was interrupted by Marcus's phone. Sarah sounded frightened. "Marcus, I need to bring Lucy to the hospital. Her fever spiked and she's saying things that don't make sense." At Phoenix Children's Hospital, Sarah explained, "She kept talking about machines being scared. Said she could hear them crying from miles away." Marcus felt a chill. What if she's not delirious? What if her illness is amplifying her sensitivity? Dr. Patricia Hernandez emerged. Lucy's asking for Marcus. She says she needs to tell him about crying machines. Marcus found Lucy in bed, flushed with fever, but eyes alert. Mr. Marcus, the machines at your building are scared. Something bad is going to happen. The elevators are crying, and the air system is holding its breath. Marcus called building security and demanded immediate inspection. What they found would be called one of the most remarkable preventive discoveries in commercial building history. A critical support beam had developed stress fractures that could have led to catastrophic collapse within days. Lucy's feverish sensitivity had allowed her to perceive the building's distress from miles away, potentially saving hundreds of lives. See, machines don't lie, they just want someone to listen. 2 weeks later, Lucy had recovered, but something had changed. Word of her ability to detect structural problems from a distance had spread through the engineering community. We have requests from NASA, earthquake research centers, nuclear power plants, Dr. Walsh reported. Everyone wants to understand Lucy's methods. Marcus watched Lucy examining a bridge model, noting she seemed more focused, more intense since her illness. How is she handling the attention? He asked Sarah. She's excited but overwhelmed. Yesterday she asked if being special meant she couldn't be normal anymore. The question struck Marcus deeply. Had he forgotten her need to be a child? Maybe we need to slow down, focus on Lucy's well-being rather than applications. Dr. Walsh looked surprised. Marcus, we're on the verge of breakthroughs that could revolutionize multiple industries. And Lucy is 7 years old. Her childhood isn't a sacrifice for scientific advancement. Before Dr. Walsh could respond, alarms sounded. Emergency lights flashed and evacuation systems activated. Marcus's phone buzzed. Structural integrity failure. Evacuate immediately. Everyone out, Marcus ordered, but Lucy's voice stopped them. Wait, it's not a failure. It's a test. Lucy, we need to evacuate. No! Listen, the building isn't scared. It's curious. Someone is testing its limits but not breaking them. His phone rang. Building security. Mr. Wellington, we've located the alarm source. It's a controlled stress test by the engineering firm designing our expansion. They forgot to notify us. Marcus looked at Lucy with amazement. How did you know? The building felt different than when it was really scared before. This time it was like going to the doctor for a checkup. Uncomfortable but not dangerous. Doctor. Walsh stared at Lucy with awe. She can distinguish between actual structural distress and testing protocols. That evening, Marcus sat with Lucy and Sarah trying to process the day's events. Lucy worked on a jigsaw puzzle, normal activity that seemed mundane after her extraordinary demonstrations. How do you feel about all the attention? Marcus asked carefully. Lucy considered while fitting puzzle pieces. It's nice that people think I'm helpful, but sometimes I wonder if they only care about what I can do, not who I am. The honesty hit like a physical blow. How many relationships had been transactional? I care about who you are. You're brave and kind and wise. The fact that you can diagnose mechanical problems is just a bonus. Lucy smiled with pure affection. That's why you're my friend, Mr. Marcus. You knew me before you knew what I could do. Marcus realized his relationship with them had become the most authentic connection he'd ever experienced. Lucy, what would you think about taking a vacation? Just the three of us, somewhere fun where nobody knows about diagnostic systems. Lucy's face lit up. Really? Like a real family vacation? Exactly like that. Disney World was everything Marcus had never known he was missing. Watching Lucy's face light up at Cinderella Castle reminded him what childhood wonder looked like. She's just a normal kid here, Sarah observed, as Lucy spun in teacups with abandon. No one expects her to solve impossible problems. She can just be 7. Marcus understood this normalcy was as precious as Lucy's extraordinary abilities. But even here, Lucy's unique perspective surfaced. Mr. Marcus, she said, waiting in line for Pirates of the Caribbean. Did you know the animatronic pirates are lonely? Lonely. They do the same actions over and over, but never interact with each other. They're like people who go to work every day but never really talk to co-workers. The analogy hit uncomfortably close to home. What would make them less lonely? Lucy considered seriously. Maybe if their programming let them improvise sometimes, or acknowledge the audience, connection makes everything less lonely. At Epcot, Lucy became fascinated by human communication throughout history. As their ride vehicle climbed through scenes depicting storytelling evolution, she asked, "Mr. Marcus, why do people sometimes stop communicating even when they have all the tools? I think sometimes people get so busy or scared that they forget how important it is to connect. Like how machines break down when they're not maintained properly." Exactly like that. Lucy was quiet as they descended through Renaissance scenes. "Is that what happened to you before you met us? You forgot how to maintain connections with people." The insight contained more wisdom than most adults achieved in lifetimes. Marcus felt tears in the darkness. "Yes, I think that's exactly what happened. But you can learn again. Everything can be fixed if you care enough to try." That evening, watching fireworks over Magic Kingdom, Marcus realized this vacation was teaching him how to be human again. Simple pleasures of shared experiences had been missing from his life so long he'd forgotten they existed. "Sarah, thank you." "For what?" "For letting me be part of this, for showing me what family feels like." "Marcus, you're not just part of this, you are this. You've become as essential to Lucy's world as breathing. She's changed everything for me. I used to think success meant building an empire. Now I think it means building connections that matter." As they returned to their hotel, Lucy stirring sleepily in Marcus's arms, he thought about Christmas mornings and birthday parties, ordinary moments that created extraordinary lives. "Mr. Marcus," Lucy's sleepy voice interrupted. "Yes, sweetheart. When we go home, can we have family dinner every week, like real families do?" "I'd like that very much." "Good. Families need regular maintenance too." Even half asleep, she saw the world through care and connection. Lucy had taught him about the most important system, the human heart, and how it needed regular attention to keep running properly. 3 months after Disney World, Marcus stood in Wellington Industries' boardroom, facing the most important decision of his professional life. Representatives from 3 major corporations offered astronomical sums for Lucy's diagnostic technology. "Mr. Wellington," said Catherine Morrison from Tech Global Industries, "our offer of $500 million would make this the largest technology acquisition in automotive history." "Our proposal includes integration with our global network," interrupted David Chen from Synergy Corporation. "A technology that could monitor every mechanical system on Earth." Marcus listened with growing unease. Each offer treated Lucy's innovations as products to be bought and sold. "These systems aren't just technology, they're expressions of a very special person's way of understanding the world. You're talking about my daughter." Everyone turned as Sarah Thompson entered, followed by Lucy, who looked around curiously before focusing on Marcus. "Hi, Mr. Marcus. Mama said there are people here who want to buy my inventions." Catherine Morrison addressed Lucy with patronizing tone. "We're very impressed with your work. We'd like to help you share it with the whole world." Lucy studied the representatives analytically. "How would you share it?" "We'd manufacture your diagnostic systems on massive scale," David Chen explained. "Install them in millions of vehicles and buildings." "But would the systems still be able to learn and adapt, or would they just do the same thing over and over?" The question caught executives off guard. Robert Sterling recovered first. "The systems would be standardized for consistency and reliability." Lucy's expression grew troubled. "But that's not how they work best. Each machine is different, like each person is different. If you make them all the same, they can't really listen to what individual machines need." Marcus felt surge of pride. She instinctively understood what the representatives were missing. "Sometimes we sacrifice perfect customization for the greater good," Morrison said with forced patience. "Helping millions of people a little bit is better than helping a few people perfectly." "Is it?" Lucy asked with genuine curiosity. My mama says that caring for each person individually is what makes caring real. If you try to care for everyone the same way, you're not really caring for anyone. Sterling's patience wore thin. We're offering your family generational wealth. But I don't worry about money now, Lucy said simply. I worry about helping things that are hurt. Money doesn't fix broken hearts, in machines or people. The room fell silent. Marcus watched representatives struggle to process Lucy's perspective. Lucy, what do you think we should do? Marcus asked gently. Lucy walked to the window. I think we should teach people how to listen to machines the way I do, instead of just selling them machines that do the listening. That way, everyone gets better at caring for things. But teaching millions of people would take decades, Chen protested. Mr. Chen, have you ever tried to fix something you didn't understand? Teaching people to understand is slower, but it lasts forever. Marcus felt clarity he'd never experienced. Lucy was proposing a fundamental shift in how humans related to the mechanical world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm withdrawing these systems from consideration for sale. The room erupted in protests. I'm ensuring it's used the way it was intended, to build relationships, not replace them. As representatives filed out angrily, Lucy approached Marcus with concern. Did I mess up your business deal? Marcus knelt to her level. Lucy, you just helped me make the best business decision of my life. We're going to start a school where people can learn to listen to machines the way you do. Lucy's face lit up. Really? We could teach people that machines have feelings too? Exactly. Sarah smiled, eyes bright with tears. Are you sure you want to give up hundreds of millions? Marcus looked at Lucy and Sarah, the family he'd never expected to find. I thought I was rich because I had money. Now I know I'm rich because I have people I love who love me back. Lucy threw her arms around Marcus. I love you too, Mr. Marcus. You're the best dad friend ever. The word dad hit like lightning bolt of pure joy. Lucy, how would you feel about making this official, about becoming a real family? Lucy studied his face. You mean like adoption? If your mama agrees. Lucy looked at Sarah, who was crying openly. Mama, can Mr. Marcus be my dad? Baby, I think Mr. Marcus has been your dad for months now. We just haven't made it official. Standing together, Marcus realized Lucy had taught him the most important lesson. Success wasn't measured in dollars accumulated, but in lives touched and love shared. So when do we start our school? Lucy asked practically. Marcus laughed, lifting her up. How about tomorrow? Perfect. It's going to be the best school ever. The Wellington Institute for Mechanical Empathy was about to change the world, one relationship at a time.